back up, but it's important.
You can't back up?
I don't know, they told us that we could back up.
Oh, okay.
Can I have him move?
That's fine, but it's just important.
How far? Yeah, ask him if he can. How far?
As far back as you can.
As far back as you can so we can have some distance. Sorry, guys.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
That's a nice turn. As far back as
I like to see flames personally. I'm sick of seeing smoke, but
normally you're right. Heads up, he's gonna move it.
I know.
We have to go.
Tear your map down, they gotta go.
Larry, you gotta take the map down. They gotta go.
Oh man, oh man.
And then, so I'm holding right here at the intersection.
We're gonna use the big tender.
Hey, listen, this is bound to happen.
So you're going to go
I'm
ahead.
not sure they're going back there will help them, but
I mean, do we need the map? Do you guys need the map for the briefing?
How about this white truck right here?
Larry,
Who's going to stay?
they're talking about maybe they don't need the map.
we'll,
Their briefing.
camera guys will let Crow
need the map.
the map separately. We put it on the side of
We
that.
can talk about the map later.
Then you can talk into the microphone, which is what helps
If anything, it's just for our own personal briefing.
Okay, everybody. This is our changing dynamics. I hope it doesn't happen again.
Sorry about the inconvenience.
Be safe.
Yeah, safety's our issue. Hey, see you. Be careful. See you tonight. We're going to let Mike Gillespie talk about safety first, and then I'll give you an update. And then we're going to let David talk about fire behavior. We'll try to get the map up. We don't, okay?
The map would more be for like our own personal knowledge probably. So we'll let him go and then we'll scoot the mic back so we can get it going.
I did a lot of tunnel fires last year, so now we're on the way, and we're not going on a tour, so I'm not gonna put the boots on.
Okay.
Okay, gang.
You want to move this back?
Okay. This side is safer because I will elbow you if you're
Cool.
on the other side. You can take
Does
it,
everyone
so
want to
it's
move at the
fine.
same time, or you want to
Good,
know?
but I do talk with mine.
You hit me, I'll hit you back.
Okay, perfect.
Here we go.
Are you allowed to move up more?
Yeah.
Better to get the interpreter.
Okay. What's up? Feel like an interview today?
We only need one.
We'll do it. We'll do you.
When you talk, get nice and close to the microphone.
You went first?
Myself,
Okay.
introduce you,
Okay.
and then we'll get the safety officer.
Okay.
Mike Gillespie. Okay, when you're ready, let me know.
My phone's too hot. It won't work right now.
I was in Chicago with trees, and it was warm, and now it's too hot.
Oh, well, cold all day.
I'm ready when everybody else is.
Okay.
Good now?
And let us know what you need when we're done. This is for you guys, okay? So,
Step up nice and close.
okay. Hey, good morning. I'm Larry Bickle, Public Information Officer for the Telegraph Fire here in Globe, Arizona. First, my ASL interpreter, Vicki Bonds. And to my left will be our safety officer, Mike Gillespie. And myself and Mike and David are going to brief you on the fire this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and let Mike Gillespie step up and talk about safety here. Mike?
Good morning. As you can see behind me, fire is behaving extremely fast today and moving, so we're having to keep folks out of the way, and we're having real issues with the heat and the relative humidities and trying to keep folks hydrated. We've had a real good record as so far. We have only minor injuries, no major incidents with folks. We try to keep them hydrated as much as possible on, off shift, and use some electrolyte replacement in between. Give them some frequent breaks during the day, try to get them some shade and good sleep at night. And that, like I said, as you can see behind us, the fire behavior is extreme today. So we're having folks be able to work where they can safely and be able to get out of the fire's way if it decides to come their way. It's very difficult terrain in parts of it, and there's no place for people to go if the fire is going very fast. So we have to keep them in an area where we're able to get them out safely at this time.
You talked about injuries.
Yes.
Can you describe those more? How many firefighters, how many personnel have been injured?
We've had about 10 minor injuries ranging from sprained ankles to bee stings, and so far only one heat-related illness, which was minor. We'll answer any other questions for safety that you folks have.
How do you hydrate firefighters in this? I know you touched on it, electrolytes, but I mean, just standing here chugging water,
Right.
you can feel it.
That's what we can do, is we provide them with bottled water and sports drinks type of things to hydrate themselves. We brief them every morning on keeping hydrated, making sure they're hydrating on and off duty. So not just when they're working, but at night, before they go to bed, drinking lots of water and trying to keep ahead of the curve and not becoming behind the curve.
108 this afternoon just for Globe. What is that going to do to the fire?
The fire itself, with 108 and the single digit humidities, everything is dry. We are already dry. The air is dry. It's creating its own heat. It's going to be hotter around the fire. It's just going to make things burn faster and quicker.
I know this isn't your first wildfire in an Arizona summer. Is there any specific challenges to firefighter safety that this wildfire is causing that's unique?
As everybody knows, Globe, Miami, Claypool area, and this mountain range is very rich in the mining history. So there are a lot of mine shafts out there that are unidentified, and we can't see them under the brush. Some of the areas have never burned and never been cleared off, so we could come across vertical mine shafts, leftover hazardous materials that are left out in the woods until from who knows how long. We come across that, hazardous materials, stuff like that.
What can the fire do this afternoon with those heat? You say it's already pretty aggressive right now, but what type of, is that going to be the next? Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Are any of those ankle injuries from the mine shafts?
No,
Okay.
no, they were from actually putting in fire line.
Thank you.
Good job,
Thank you.
Mike. Mike Gillespie, safety.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? That's it from Mike. Okay, I'm Larry Bickle again, Public Information Officer. I'm going to go ahead and step you through the branches of the fire. We come to this fire, we lay out divisions, and if the fire gets bigger, we lay out branches. So we now have 3 branches on this fire. We're going to talk about the south, branch 1. We're going to talk about the west northwest, branch 2, and the east and northeast, which we're at right now. So branch 1 is the heel of this fire. It's the south side of this fire. It's in patrol status right now. When you get to the map, you'll understand more. So we're okay. That's the heel of the fire. Branch 2 is the 60 corridor, and you drove through that today. You noticed that there may be some unburned pockets of fuel along Highway 60, and if you're seeing any smoke, that's where they're coming from. We still have some work to do at top of the world, and also with Oak Flats. We're working with some of the ranchers in the interior, but it's looking good in there. So as you can see behind me, this is branch 3, and this is where most of our efforts are today. We have contingency lines around Globe, Claypole, and Miami. Again, back to the map, we'll explain that, to where we have that pretty well buttoned up. This south or east side of the fire is, we're looking at Pinal Peak right now. That is where we're having our issues with trying to get some containment around this fire. We do have currently, we're at 91,277 acres. Number of personnel are 971. And we have 74% containment, again, which means that we feel that the fire won't jump our lines. It says 24% containment behind me that we're trying to get to today. That's really a nutshell on what's going on with the fire. I'm going to let David come in and talk about the fire behavior. But first, I'll take any questions that you have about the fire.
I'm not trying to jump the gun on David, maybe, but what changed overnight?
What changed overnight? Humidity. The humidity and the increasing air temperature. We were at 80 degrees on the ridgetop last night, which was pretty warm. With the low humidity and then the high temperatures, that created the fire behavior overnight. We did have some pluming going on. We did have, which we normally don't at night.
You said that the fire has crossed some of those containment lines that you guys had already established. What does that mean, and do you guys have control of this?
That's a good question. We primarily try to get to the fire direct, and that would be our first containment line. And we also are thinking ahead to where we're putting a second and maybe even a third containment line based on future weather. So if the fire jumps our first containment line, then we immediately go back and start with our second containment. We're working on that right now at Pinal Peak. It has jumped Pioneer Pass Road, so we're now moving back to our second contingency line. North of the peak, again on the map, we'll show you a dozer line that's going to be our second containment line.
Why does it cross the containment line?
We get spotting, we get the pluming, we get rollout, it rolls down and burns back up. We get our firefighters out of there. And when we first see that happen, we get back to the second containment and start strengthening that.
But the fire has just become more aggressive?
It has. We're looking at the behavior today with fire weather, and again, David will get into that. We have a Haynes index of 6, and I don't want to get into that with the normal layman, but that's bad. That gets a real good plume. David may touch on that more. But we have extreme fire behavior that we normally don't see, and that's why we get back. We can't have spotting behind our lines, and when we see that, we immediately get out. So
today is described as it's going to be a rough day.
Today is a fire day. We know that. We have high temperatures. We have low humidity. The thing that's kind of saving us is moderate winds, but we still have erratic behavior with this plume-dominated fire, and we could see erratic winds. So that's our issue today.
What's the concern period time? Is it like 2 to 6?
Our high burn times, are normally noon to 3. That's our most aggressive times for fire. But in this instance, we may be looking a little earlier to a little later, and to have the plume-dominated fire at night was, not normal.
Does this behavior put any more structures at risk?
Not at this time. We do have some evacuations in place. We do have a ready, set, go here. The sheriff's departments, and we'll put that out for the counties, but we're looking at maybe some go statuses, but we'll update you on that as we can.
So there's not structures down in that?
There's always outbuildings and camps and cabins, and we're doing the best we can to protect those assets. There are values at risk, and that's what we have on top of this mountain here. We have a tremendous amount of values at risk, and that's why we were trying to burn around that, to save those values at risk. I'm going to give you a progression map before you leave on why we did what we did. We'll explain that to you one-on-one later, that this is why we had to ring around these values at risk. We knew the fire was coming this way, so we had to be proactive. It didn't quite make it this way, and that's what we're doing today, is trying to work that fire.
On Friday, you guys were protecting the communication towers, doing those prescribed burns. Is that what got out of control?
It didn't get out of control. You know, we had to ring these values at risk. We were going to lose them. We were going to lose them anyways. So that's a decision we make in fire a lot, that where we save more than we lose more, and that was made. All our agencies got together and made that decision.
So they were saved?
The values at risk on top of this mountain are safe. Yeah.
There was a lot of chatter last night with residents of Globe, extra concern about visually what they're seeing today that we haven't seen for several days here. Should people in Globe be more concerned today than they were yesterday?
You know, we have fire here in our backyard, and everybody talks about it until it does get in their backyard. But we know we're doing the best we can. We're getting the containment lines put in around the communities. We have done some burnout around the communities. We're assessing that on probably an hourly basis, if not more. But anytime you see fire in your yard, sure, you should be worried. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
Temperatures staying high like this all week and even getting hotter later in the week, what's the concern with that?
You know, we're looking at extreme fire behavior today. We may be into critical fire behavior the rest of the week. Our fire behavior analyst gives us an update every day. We're going to stick with that. But we have hot, dry weather, and we're going to have fire. There's no doubt about it. We reassess that on a daily basis.
Is the fire going in all different directions? I know you said 3 corridors, so it's coming this way, that way, and behind it?
You always ask good questions. We did this operations on the top of the mountain, so we're having to roll out the whole way around the mountain. So, with the winds predominantly from the southwest, we should be more worried about the northeast, but it's still rolling down, and we still have erratic winds. So we really got to continue. We're looking at containment lines south of this peak now, and more contingency lines south. So, it's rolling down in all directions.
Is there a chance that it could meet the Mescal?
No, I'm glad. Another question. The Mescal fire is kind of wrapped up. It's pretty good. They actually have contingency lines between that fire and 77 here, and if this fire would, run on us, we may be able to use those. So, that's something that we need to look at. But we have them everywhere. We have contingency lines. We keep making that box bigger if we have to. Right now we're trying to shrink it. We're trying to keep it in the box. But we already have contingencies for a bigger box.
I'll try to ask a good question here. This plume of smoke that's directly behind you to your left.
Correct.
Is that an example of what you're talking about, how it burns out and then it rolls back up the hill?
I'm always honest. You guys are going to find out. We develop trust. I don't know that answer. I can't give that to you right now. I wish I could.
We don't know exactly what that plume is right there.
That's correct. I mean, we know that that's east of the peak. Did it roll down? I don't know that. But we normally don't do any burning operations in fire behavior this way. Instead, it's a last resort.
Any idea how this fire started?
Pardon?
Any idea how this fire started?
The fire is human caused, still under determination. We're here to get this fire out to help you people, but we're having a continuing investigation going all the time.
Who investigates that?
We have wildland fire investigators. You're talking to one. I was carted out nationally to investigate fires, cause and determination. There's 14 different categories. We start by eliminating some of those categories. So we're working on that. We want to really find out what caused this fire.
Do you have like an estimated timeline or for that investigation?
No, sometimes we never get there. But yeah, that's a good question.
I think the goal was to have containment by the 20th, that's 6 days from now, but now with this weather, is that still possible? Is 20th still the goal?
We'll reassess that again every day. We like to look out 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. You'll see that on INCIWeb on the public site, and that's a great site to use. I'd like you to get that out, that INCIWeb is really a great tool. We also have Telegraph fire information on Facebook. We have virtual community meetings every other night. As of now, we had one last night. So, yeah, that's good information for the public.
David?
Can we talk to you?
David? Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
I hope I did okay.
Yeah.
David, can you just say your first and last name and spell it?
Sure, it's David Albo, A-L-B-O. I'm a public information officer here with the Telegraph Fire. Just to get you a little background on some of the extreme weather conditions that we've been facing. You know, the last few days, the relative humidities during the day have been approaching like 1-2%, which is pretty extreme for this time of year. You know, we might expect 10-12% during the day. Overnight, those humidities usually recover up into 20-30%. Last night, when we saw some very active fire behavior here behind us on East Mountain, those humidities were still maybe 7%, and the air temperatures only got down to 80. At one point, the RAWS station, the weather station here on this side of the mountain, got up to 90 earlier this morning. And so what that set up was, normally at night, the fire activity really decreases, moderates with that activity, with relative humidity and lower temperatures. Last night we had a plume-dominated fire at 3 in the morning up here behind us on East Mountain, and that's really set up the conditions we're looking at today. So the fire didn't really take a break; it has just kept going throughout the morning. And when we talk about plume-dominated fire, basically that's convective energy. It's drawing air in from the surrounding desert, and it's pushing that smoke way high up into the atmosphere. And one thing we really were stressing and briefing with the incident commander and operations is that sets up potentially some dangerous conditions for the firefighters here on the fire line. There's always potential for that column to collapse, which will send wind down in high winds in every direction, kind of like if you dumped out a bucket of water out onto the floor. So firefighter safety is our number one priority out here. So as these conditions kind of progress throughout the day, firefighters are going to be staying in real close communication with one another, keep an eye on their safety zones and the fire behavior in their area.
So is there a chance that, this afternoon, what you're describing, you're going to have to pull firefighters out?
It's a possibility for sure. If the conditions get too dangerous, they'll pull back to their safety zones, and then once things moderate, they'll re-engage.
Does that mean that you guys would have to fight it from the air?
Yes, those air assets are usually available. We can see we've got them today as we have some more communities threatened to the south at El Capitan. But yeah, we can always pull back out to the highways, to the safety zones, and use air assets if needed.
What could we see behind us? You're talking about it could change this afternoon. Would it be flames, more smoke? Like, is it coming? What can we expect to see?
This afternoon, you can expect the column to increase throughout the day, and then, like I talked about, there is that potential. If it collapsed, you could see smoke progress in many different directions.
And just to be clear, it collapsing is a very bad thing.
It's a very bad thing. Yeah, it's a huge safety concern for us.
So you'll be able to predict that or see that happening, or does it just happen?
So the firefighters on the line, they're monitoring conditions. They typically will have spotters who are spinning weather. They call it spinning weather, and watching for any indicators that column might collapse. And then they'll communicate that out to their adjacent resources.
What would that physically look like to us here? Would we notice a column collapsing? Would you see it?
You would notice it, and you would probably see just a huge increase in smoke as that fire spread out.
Black smoke?
Potentially, yeah.
Larry had chatted with us about how the fixed wings couldn't fly. It was too thin.
Mm-hmm. So we're still we've seen them flying. still at a safe temperature. But yeah, that's a potential.